So,
get that out there.
Do I want that on YouTube or not? We'll see.
I'm going to go get some stuff real quick for my notes. I shall be back.
Okay. Three 16. You're back. Brought to you by paintballtotheend.com. Welcome to 10 Minute Marks, episode 28. Once again, I'm Paul.
I am not a Chargers fan. I am Jeff. And this is the night after. This is Tuesday, September 14th, the night after the Chiefs beat the Chargers. Woo!
And anyway, we got a special episode for you tonight. We're going to be comparing WWE and TNA and who has the brightest future. We're going to look at it from three different categories. One is the creative department, one is the second one's the mid-card, and the third is the main event talent they have. Jeff, start us off.
We are going to go through these three categories and kind of judge where each company's at right now and where they should be in the future. The reason we're going with the mid-card is because eventually, hopefully, the mid-card will become main event. And so that will parlay into the future of each company. We're going to start off with the creative department. WWE versus TNA in creative. Obviously WWE has TNA killed. And this will remain so. This will remain so until Vince Russo is no longer part of TNA.
Need a bigger hint. Get rid of Vince Russo.
Exactly. And people are asking Dixie Carter why she's sticking with Vince Russo and TNA, and she is giving all kinds of BS answers. She doesn't even know how to answer the question herself. We hate to keep harping on it, but bring Heyman to TNA.
Yeah.
And Heyman, go to TNA, especially now that you've got EV 2.0 there. Obviously, though, WWE has TNA killed in this department, and it will for quite some time, probably, until something changes.
Problem with TNA, besides Vince Russo, of course, which some may argue that it's hand in hand, but they don't have clear wins and losses, and they're getting a little bit better about it, but they're still doing it. And I'll give you an example. Several weeks ago when they had Anderson versus Matt Morgan, Anderson beats him. Immediately afterwards, Matt Morgan busts him open with his own microphone. What was the point? Who got over in that? Who got over in that match? Whereas, here's an example of what WWE does. Last week on Raw, they had John Cena versus Orton in a tables match with no DQs. NXT storms the ring, and they start beating him up, and then Orton kind of gets ahead of steam and nails three of them through tables. Wade Barrett, Justin Gabriel, and I think Heath Slater. Then, of course, Sheamus interferes, and Cena lays him out with the FU, attitude adjustment or whatever.
Right.
Of course, Cena gets in there in the ring, and Orton's getting ready to DDT him, but Cena counters him, and he's getting ready to FU him, and midway through the FU, Orton RKOs him through the table. Crowd goes nuts. Mm-hmm. Orton got over, which I'm glad to see Orton over Cena, not going to lie. But that's an example of WWE saying, this is our top guy.
There's my Orton over Cena.
Yeah.
Orton for president. Cena for gubernatorial of something.
Yeah. But that's the thing with WWE is they have their go-to guys. And we'll get into more of that later, but for right now, that's why WWE is a bit stronger than TNA. Is they establish their top guys.
And that was the problem with me back in WCW. It's kind of fascinating to have so many guys at the top, but, you know, TNA doesn't have Goldberg. And he's been mentioned on this show before. Somebody mentioned him in one of our comments. You know, back in WCW, they had Goldberg. They had a go-to guy. And they had Hogan, and they had Sting. And they would, you know, interchange them. TNA really doesn't have that. They don't have one guy that dominates, you know, the way we think AJ Styles should.
Yeah.
Or Samoa Joe. But yeah,
the house that AJ built.
Yeah, the house that AJ built. Touch on that later.
Yep.
That brings us to our mid-carders. Mid-card for TNA, Motor City Machine Guns, Beer Money, Matt Morgan, Hernandez, the Pope, guys like that. WWE, you got John Morrison, you got R-Truth, you got The Miz, who's working his way up apparently. The Hart Dynasty. This, to me right now, in my opinion, favors TNA. Mm-hmm. The one problem that TNA has, and we've mentioned this on the show before, is the fact they don't have a second show. And Reaction does not count as a second show. I apologize. I know I've said before that TNA doesn't have a second show, and they do, you know, with Reaction, and I caught a few minutes of it a few weeks ago, and it's cool. But they don't have that second show that WWE has, so they can't really showcase their mid-card talent as much. You know, you haven't seen Taylor Wilde in a while. You haven't seen Serena. You haven't seen Amazing Red. You haven't seen, you know, some of the X Division guys, and that's their future right there, which is why we bring them up. But in WWE, you have another show to showcase Dolph Ziggler, you know, things of that nature. But in all actuality, I think talent-wise, TNA has a slight edge in the mid-card department. They have a little better future with their guys going forward. If they can show them enough. If they can give them enough to go with.
Mm-hmm. Especially with some of their mid-card like the Pope and Anderson, who are very close to main event.
Right.
Anderson may very well be main event.
Right.
But I'm just saying, a lot of their guys have that potential to get right to the top. And WWE, a lot of them are going to take a while.
And that leads us to our main event talent for each company. Main event for WWE consists of Rey Mysterio, John Cena, Randy Orton, Edge, Jericho, and Kane right now. And Undertaker now that he's come back. Main event for TNA, AJ Styles, Kurt Angle, Abyss, RVD, Jeff Hardy. And you could probably fit Anderson in there now, especially since he's going into that triple threat Bound for Glory. You could probably put him in there. Main event talent, this is tough to call to me. TNA has the youth on their side in this department. AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, which I didn't list Joe before, but he's main event. Abyss is really young. RVD is still fairly young. Jeff Hardy is still fairly young. Anderson is up there in age a little, but still fresh. He has not, you know, he doesn't have the years under his belt that Kurt Angle does. I mean, the only real veteran they have in the main event, and as much as people gripe about TNA having older guys, the only real veteran they have on their main event roster that's older than me would probably be Kurt Angle. Whereas WWE, half of their main event's going to be gone in 3 years. Triple H is on the injured reserve right now. Ray is going to be gone within 3 years. You know, Edge may be gone in 3 years. Jericho may be gone.
Taker probably has 1 year left.
Taker and Kane probably have 1 year left each. And that just leaves you with Cena and Orton. I mean, that's why they're having to build up Sheamus and The Miz and bring them up along. Which to me is a little too soon for both of those, but you see where this is going. As far as edge, as far as who gets the edge, I think WWE does by a little bit, and just because of Randy Orton. I mean, Randy Orton is phenomenal. To me, he's the best in the business right now, period. With Kurt Angle being a very close second.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, Randy Orton is the best in the biz. I mean, I'll let Paul give his opinions on this, but that's just me. You know, WWE to me has a slight edge, although TNA is not that far behind just because of the fact that their guys are all young.
Yes. You've already heard me praise last week's Raw's ending because Orton got over Cena. It is not just because I don't like Cena that much. It is because Orton is exactly what WWE needs right now. Not only has he improved psychologically as a wrestler, like he's probably learned from the best. He probably talks to Shawn and Brett and Triple H backstage. How do I do that? How do I construct this match? He is also, the crowd loves him. He's also sort of the anti-hero that WWE needs. He's a little bit, I don't want to compare him to Stone Cold, but it's a little bit of that rough Billy Badass sort of
face.
That sort of face. And I hope they continue to keep pushing him because the crowd's eating him up right now.
Who has a brighter future in the mid-card department to you?
I honestly believe it's TNA. They have the brighter future because they're younger. A lot of them are that close to being main event, especially like the Pope. So they don't need to like rush him along. They could just take their time with them and keep him going. Whereas WWE is frantically trying to get Miz and Sheamus along. And to be fair, Miz is a little bit better.
And Swagger.
Yeah.
Right.
Drew McIntyre, they're trying to rush him along too.
Right.
And that's why a lot of people are like, oh, it's too soon. It's because their main event is kind of being out of the door here in a couple of years, as we already mentioned. So I think that's why TNA's mid-card talent is fresher.
Main event talent, who do you think has the edge?
I would say WWE just by a little bit. And that's only because, like we said, Orton and, dare I say it, Cena.
Right.
But they also have Jericho and Edge, and they have guys who've been around a while in the main event that aren't quite old yet. But the next 3 years, WWE's going to be hurting, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, whereas TNA will be like, oh, we've got the Pope prepared. We've got Anderson prepared. We've got Matt Morgan prepared.
Right.
We've got Motor City Machine Guns. We can rely on them if we have to.
Right.
They've got so many guys. By that time, they'll be ready.
There's going to be an eventual split with the Motor City Machine Guns and Beer Money.
Mm-hmm.
But they've got the time to bring them along to do a proper split like you would have back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And do it right and have them ready to go singles whenever they do split. Whereas, does WWE really have that time?